we're going to get into The Stand. We are behind, Robert, 2 episodes.
Yes.
The Stand, episode 7, and episode 8. I forget what 7 was completely.
7 was called The Walk.
Yes.
And I think that's the one I think started with a trash can man getting the bomb, if I remember correctly. Somehow he got in there pretty easily, and it's this nuclear warhead is about 50 yards from a 6-foot chain link fence.
Right.
Somehow they cut out a couple things because somehow he not only got in there, but he also sawed his way through it, lifted it up on a crane somehow, and then hugged it.
It's just so amazing. We talked about that in the thread. I don't care if there's a pandemic and the world's dead or not. You don't waltz into a nuclear silo and arc weld that thing off. I mean, he has like an arc welder and he's like hugging it. It's like, you don't, those things are like 200 feet under the ground.
And then they cut, and all of a sudden it's in his little, what do you call it? Range Rover thing. Yeah, he was driving. It wasn't even a car. That little kind of.
It's like a golf cart.
A golf cart.
What's the gas mileage on those from the deserts of Utah to Las Vegas?
Apparently, really good because he didn't have to get gas either. He just.
What is that thing? He took a golf cart. For lack of a better term, it was a tram car that you see at like theme parks. It was a tram car. He took like across state lines.
So that's where probably like. All right, I'll let that pass because it's a little preposterous to begin with, you know.
Right.
And I can't quite remember how it happened in the 94 miniseries, but it didn't seem to be an issue with me at the time.
The 94 miniseries I thought was okay because Matt Frewer's Trash Can Man was in a nuclear weapons storage facility where he somehow gained access underground to like the bunker where they just store them. That was more plausible that he would get it that way, not removing them physically from the rocket launcher.
Yeah, wasn't Lloyd and some people with him? Didn't they shoot some military people? Or I can't remember. Well, anyway, I don't know. So we also saw the death of Mother A.
Yes,
and it was a little. I was having some flashbacks to is it Shmi Skywalker, her death in Revenge of the Sith, where I couldn't tell. Did she just pass out? Or
she just passed
dead?
out.
I couldn't quite tell. It's kind of like when you're talking to a drunk person, they eventually just nod off, and I was like, maybe she's just sleeping. Yeah.
What? Are you dead? No, I need pancakes. Yeah, she just kind of nodded off, and it was very anticlimactic in the sense that you're like, I guess she's dead.
Dead. And then I swear I was like, oh, somebody please say a line. It's like we don't really have to do this, do we? Like.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Like, let's move on from this.
Yeah, no food, no water. One of you won't make it. It was like people were like, I'm not gonna do. Do you have to do this from this lady? I don't know.
It was almost like they were reading lines from somebody was reading lines from the book off camera. It was like, and then just say, I'll promise to try. I'll promise to try. I'll promise to try. Got it. Move on.
And then.
That was it.
And I do my best. I'm like, all right. And I think when the candle blew out, I'm like, no, like, nope. We know she's dead. We don't need to blow out the candle
why did they do that? The flickering candle just extinguished.
I don't know. That's why I was like, did somebody blow that out? What's going on?
It symbolizes that she died. Thank you.
I want somebody like Ray should have picked it up. It's like, we got to save candles. She's not using this.
Yeah, we got this. We need to conserve. The power's still spotty. Episode 6 took them to their journey to the desert, or their journey to New Vegas, where of course Stu broke the leg and they had to move on.
I think that was this one, episode 7.
Is this episode 7? I mean, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I felt like this was the most boring one of the entire season. What do you think?
We had a nice montage of them walking, which is fine. I always wonder in movies, though, because they showed them kind of walking on these cliffs, and I'm like, well, I'm sure there's a little, there's roadways to Vegas from Boulder. We don't need to be climbing mountains.
Yeah, what was that? They used Ray, the Native American character, and they kind of made a joke of like, oh, you think because I'm the Native American girl, I'll know the trails? Yeah, well, do you? Sure do. Let's go. It's like, You can still take the roads. That's probably the easiest way because you're not
I
encountering obstacles.
Yeah, I would think so. And then and in this version, they kind of had it made because then they got picked up.
Yeah.
And apparently they
Hey,
were pretty
boys.
far. Yeah, don't even start me with Lloyd. I don't know what he's doing. Uh, but
And why the limousine in the desert? Not the most practical vehicle to be off-roading in.
well, gas is not an issue apparently. So it's
Apparently. Those things are guzzlers too. They get like 12 miles to the gallon.
but they had to be pretty far away because they left in the daylight, and by the time they got to Vegas, it was dark. I'm like, well,
What's happening?
they were probably like 3 miles outside of Boulder. I don't know.
Did did they probably were. Did Harold Lauder, he died in this episode or was it 6?
I think it was. I think it was was it this one?
Yeah,
I think
they
it was
found him
this
in
one
this one.
where so it was a
You're
little
right.
bit different than the book and the original movie where Nadine kind of did this on purpose. Um,
Right. Yeah, they didn't have Flag, scaring him off road. I felt like when Howard Lauder died, the my whole takeaway from The Stand is the biggest problem is that they focus on the wrong characters. Like Harold Lauder's an integral part of the book, but they almost make the entire series about him up until this point,
mhm.
and it just doesn't work. And after he, again, spoiler alerts, after he gets thrown off the road and impaled, I felt like they focused on him for way too long. They had like the flashback and the voiceover with the monologue of the letter he's writing, and then Larry gets off road and like covers him up. There was like too much going on with Louder, I felt.
Yeah, and I don't know if they kind of thought we want to follow him on this journey, but and then I go back to I'm like as much as I hate to say it, the most intriguing character, the ones that you wonder what she's going to do next is Nadine. And so she was much
Right.
more interesting, and I loved after she obviously she saw a flag in the desert and they had sex, and then she became a kind of platinum bombshell in her mind, and I was like, I love that aspect that she didn't
Yes.
really. That's what she thought she looked like, and then obviously when you see her later, that's not what she looks like at all.
I do like that aspect a lot. I'm glad you said that because in a lot of film portrayals, like they did in Passion of the Christ, they did it in a bunch of other movies, when somebody's kind of possessed by the devil or given parts of their soul away to some other entity, they still have this idea of like, oh, everything's great. But on the outside, physically, people like they crumble in film. And they did that really well here where she's thought she was this beautiful, girl still. And
Hmm.
also she's got white hair and her face is gaunt and like sinking.
Yeah, which is pretty good makeup. I was kind of
I thought
because I was
so.
like, is that even her? I mean, they did a good job, and I kind of like that aspect of it. And actually wish that she had been to Vegas earlier. They could have stretched that out for me.
I thought the same thing, and I felt like they did do a good job, especially at the end of episode 7, where they show her face. Where I thought maybe that's not even Amber Heard anymore. That looks like
Yeah,
somebody different. But I do feel like they should have they could have had her come to Vegas earlier and explore that more.
yeah. No, I would have much, especially because what happens in the next episode kind of began. It felt like they kind of scrunched it, but. And the other thing I'll say about this episode is like they're driving through Vegas, and I'm like, well, Vegas has their crap together at least.
It was very pristine.
Yeah, I was like, it's not so bad, you know?
It was very, except for the crucifixions on the side of the road, it
Yeah,
was very clean.
yeah,
And Caesars, they were chiseling Flag's face
yeah. They
up
did a good
there.
job, so they have some artistry there. Whoever did
There's
that.
some talented people there. Why did they do you remember when they're driving to Vegas and they have the guy getting beat up on the side of the road? There was no significance to that, right? That was just to show the characters like, yeah, they're kind of all over the place here.
Yeah, I think they kind of try to tiptoe and like this is a bad place, but it's really 90% of them look like they're just there to have a good time.
Yeah,
And
they looked
and
like they were
and
just in Vegas,
yeah, and
like on
just kind of
vacation.
caught up in the wave. And I wouldn't put it past anybody to say, well, let's just go where the party at, not with the boring Boulder people. Uh,
That's what I was thinking early on in the series was I'd go to Vegas, but I think once I got there,
you get
I
tired.
would I'd get tired of it.
Yeah.
I
Meanwhile,
don't know.
Boulders has their VHS tapes out for kids and
Yeah, they're watching that film. What was that movie?
Time Bandits.
Time Bandits. So episode 7 and
Seven.
8, they went over. I felt like 8 was, which is called The Stand,
Hmm.
was the best one so far for all of its flaws in the sense that it was It was not. We're done with flashbacks at this point,
Yes.
and they showed the deaths of, the main characters and what happened.
Yeah. So the courtroom scene, I kind of got where they're going for. Um, I thought Lloyd was maybe trying to kind of channel some Dolly Parton, maybe, is what I felt like he was doing.
What was he trying to do?
I don't know. But I feel like I've seen this kind of thing before. Like somebody did it better. Was it The Dark Knight or Dark Knight Rises, where they kind of create their own court system? And
Right.
I
It
was
was
like,
like the Occupy Wall Street kind of
yeah.
throwback.
And I don't care. These people can't be that excited. They're hooting and hollering at a hearing, but they were.
Yeah, they were going crazy.
Yeah.
That chick who played the judge or was sitting in the judge's chair, like
Yeah.
like the event coordinator for everything, is so annoying. When she's like, just kill him, shoot him. It's like, what? And then, because in other scenes, you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
She's very like, she's afraid of Flag, obviously, and she's very like, okay, let's do this, move here, let's switch the camera. She's
Yeah.
all into that, and then all of a sudden she's demanding for people to die, and then she's afraid of like, well, it was him. I don't know what she's trying to be. Is she absolute crazy or is she fearful? But because for someone that waffles so much, she was very adamant about like, shoot him, kill him, Lloyd.
Yeah. And Flag has to be mad because I'm like, these two are the best of the best. Lloyd and
Terrible.
her and Julie.
Terrible. I can't stand Lloyd's character. Like you, I'm not a big fan of the actor. I just don't think he does a good job. But I was appreciative of the fact that they humanized him a little bit more in this one, just to show a range as
Yeah.
opposed to his like silly lines that he's always saying.
Yeah. And he has to, obviously the lines were written for him. I thought it was interesting that their kind of get out of jail ticket would be to pledge loyalty to Flag. And I'm like, oh, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, how does that work? Where have we heard that before?
And of course they didn't take it. And if Greg Kinnear, I mean, he's somebody else that I wish I probably would have seen a little bit more. He's one of the more interesting characters, or he had interesting things to say, at the very least. But
I thought he was a great character. Ray, right? No, it was Glenn Bateman. I felt like he's a great character in the book, and I felt like Greg Kinnear brought like a new light to him. They didn't just make him like an old guy.
Yeah.
7 went into 8 with them arriving in Vegas, and we open up episode 8 of them in the cage in the basement of the Inferno, and that first part of the episode felt appropriately like very Trumpian. They made a lot of there was obviously a lot of parallels between when they wrote The Stand during the Trump administration and what you were saying, because they're talking about they'll just follow anybody and they beat people up and destroy them that don't agree with them, and this isn't society, and it was kind of on the nose, but it worked. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, no, that's what I was like. Oh, I wish we seen the same thing. We should have been seeing a little bit more of this Vegas to build it up. How does it work? And it when you were talking, it reminded me that in the original miniseries, we saw them cleaning up Vegas, just like they were cleaning up Boulder. Same thing. That's what these people were doing.
True.
We didn't get that here. It was just magic.
No, I felt like we should have. We should have had equal splits, and the episode 6 should have started more in Vegas and have carried, or episode 7 should have began more in episode 6 of them traveling, and we should have had like maybe one more episode focused more on Vegas and less of like people walking around Boulder kind of thing. That was a budgetary reason, had to be, right?
I would think so. Yeah, you could kind of tell. Obviously, Vegas, they had some shots, and then we always immediately go to the Vancouver former hotel.
Yeah,
as big as the everything is, it's all kind of this kind of 100-yard empty pool. It's like, this is the best in Vegas. I don't know.
right. Yeah, I felt like they shot 3 days in Vegas and then they filled it up with that Vancouver, because Vegas, if they really wanted to do it, even digitally, composed, they could have explored a lot more of Vegas, the city, as far as what's there, like, the different hotels and things like that. They could have made that more Vegas. I know they have cool overhead shots, which is cool, but they could have done a little bit more. And the 94 did a little bit more, like you said, with the cleaning up, and the final showdown is in the middle of the, Las Vegas Boulevard. And
that's what I was hoping for. And that was more cinematic to kind of see that. And obviously were they on the crosses? I think, if I remember right, or they were at least put up on a stage.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
Now, granted, putting them in
They were on the wheels in the '94 where
yeah,
they're going to be like racked. They were
and
going
there's
to
a
be like
huge
dismembered.
crowd. Yeah. Um, but yeah, that seemed to work kind of better, and I was kind of expecting a little bit rather than like, oh, we're gonna drown these two. I'm like, okay, like that's not a good thing either. But
Right. We're gonna. Yeah. The drowning is always tough to watch, and when Lloyd was kind of like, get rid of them before they drown, and
yeah,
Flag was saying, shoot them. You're a coward. It really did show his lack of power at that point, and that he was only powerful by people feeding into the fear, kind of like Trump.
yes,
But when he was levitating and he started to come down, it looked uncontrolled, like he's starting to lose things a little bit.
yeah,
So I feel like they did a good job with that. And when they have people shouting out, when Larry starts saying, "I will fear no evil," and other people are shouting it,
hmm
it was a little reminiscent to like a Me Too or people speaking up against injustice.
yeah,
Because then you see like, "Oh, shut up,
yeah.
cowards!"
Who
And
said that? And
who said that?
yeah,
Because
press
Flag should have
conference
known
is
that.
over. Yeah,
Flag should have known that too. If he was still at the height of his power, he should have known who said that. I mean, he could see the spies coming in.
yeah.
He would know who would say something in a room. And just as long as they played Heaven, that dance song, which by
So
the way, I
what?
said to the show, that melody is time after time. Am I not right?
Yeah, that's exactly what it sounded like. And I was listening for those lyrics. I'm like, well, maybe it's not that song, or maybe Cyndi Lauper should sue. I don't know.
It was a blatant ripoff. I was
Later,
like, it's
yeah,
time after time.
and
No, it's not.
yeah, or maybe she'll ignore it because she wants nothing to do with this danceteria thing. That's
Yeah, ridiculous. He's just dancing. And what is that?
I don't know what Alex Sanders Skarsgård was doing there, but whew,
Please.
yeah.
That was tough to watch. It was ridiculous.
um, yeah, I think they want to kind of have a frenzy built up, and I was like, oh, that's not the way to do it. But yeah, like I said, I think that was God's last straw. Like, you know what? Fog's coming down on this. We're no more dancing.
That's hilarious. Everything was going to be like, we're going to let it slide and not get involved yet. But once that dancing, that's it. What do you think about the way the hand of God came down via smoke as opposed to like a glowing hand?
It was good special effects, and so I kind of liked that, and I kind of liked it kind of in closing. I thought, oh, this could be interesting. And then they had the light zapper, which is pretty powerful. It didn't just didn't disintegrate people, it like kind of sliced them. It's like, I guess, lasers.
Yeah, it looked like something out of War of the Worlds, when like they would get zapped in the clothes.
Yeah.
I'm glad
May-
Lloyd died the way he did, where he turned around, he thought he missed it, he got his head split up.
I had a little image. I have the little Final Destination with that, where like he can't be that dumb that he doesn't understand.
That it would swing back.
Yeah,
The pendulum that almost hit him, the beam.
yeah,
Oh, I missed it.
yeah.
Let me turn around.
Then I'm like, yep, you get what you know.
He's dumb. I like that they used the way. I thought it was great the way they used the hand of God. I think it would have looked cheesy, even with all the special effects of a physical hand coming down. The fact that they used the opening where Nadine fell to bring in the smoke
Hmm.
was really cool.
Yeah, we
Because
didn't
that
talk about.
bomb was no joke.
Yeah, I guess we didn't talk about Nadine committing suicide. So she quickly has her character arc where she realizes this is not a good thing, and then she uses the stone, special stone you get with the special kids club of to break the window, and obviously leaps to her death. I kind of preferred the mini series where that Nadine just kind of slips off quietly onto the balcony, and
I do too.
yeah.
I
But
thought it was.
this was different. Yeah, obviously she was 12 months pregnant, and
Yeah, I thought it was good that she got out because Vegas, they don't have windows where you can open up in
mhm,
Vegas. So I was thinking the same thing, like how is she going to do this? And then she did it, but I could have done better with the quiet, like disappear and you see what happens, not the
mhm.
whole like falling and. But I guess the baby was supposed to kill her in labor, or she knew she was going to
She
die from
knew,
labor.
yeah. So it was squirming around quite a bit. I mean, it was,
It was nasty.
yeah,
It would look like something reminiscent of Alien.
yeah. I was like, are we gonna see this? I thought, because now I'm like, what changes are they gonna make? Because like now anything can kind of happen. Because I knew that they had some plans to kind of add to the ending or redo the ending. So I thought, oh, we're going to start to see some different stuff, but not really.
I think when she was falling, she should have been falling backwards, and in like Alien 3, the demon baby comes out and she just
It
grabs it,
pulled it. Yeah.
and then Flag was so good. No. And then, but instead of the pool, it's fire. It's like because the hotel's the Inferno, so
Yeah.
maybe it was like an Inferno or something. I felt like they should have really played up to the Alien 3 fan base to that
That
one,
would have been
and they
good.
missed it.
That was the saving moment for Alien 3 that made it somewhat bearable to kind of see that.
Somewhat bearable.
Yeah.
See prisoners running in the dark. I don't understand where your priority. When Flag screamed and was crying, kind of about upset that she passed away, you see Lloyd and that other chick. That's kind of what do we do? What do we do? We're scared. And at that point, they know, and that he knows that they know that like it's over. It's all falling
Yeah.
apart. So that last act, what? Oh, before I continue, the last act, I felt like they timed it well. But what do you think about Trash Can Man coming in and the makeup and everything with
So
Ezra?
makeup, it's always a little overdone, and it reminded me of like mid '80s Scar makeup. That's what we would always see. This kind of like you could
The
tell it's
belt.
makeup, whatever. And I always wonder, I'm like, does it look better in real person than it does on screen? Because they
Oh,
put time in it. These are experts that know what they're doing. And I
yeah.
like how people just kind of clear the way. Like I'm like, oh great, Trash Can Man's here. He's not looking good.
Yeah, and everyone's screaming his name.
Yeah.
The Trash Can Man.
And and then I thought originally, and I could be wrong, because I thought maybe in the novel that he was supposed to have turned against Flag. Um, but I think part of me is like he didn't know he was supposed to go to the airport. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think he's the most coordinated of planners.
Yeah.
And how does Flag not know he's coming to Vegas? He's supposed to be able to see everything. How
Well,
does he not
Flag,
know like number 3 man is like bringing the bomb to his doorstep?
he didn't know Mother A was dead, so he was kind of
Did not.
uh
The power was weakening.
yeah.
They should have explored that more too, because if you never read the book or saw the 94, you wouldn't really know that by watching this. That a lot of this the stuff that we're talking about now that happened in the stand, it wasn't like explored very well.
Mhm. And I wonder if I'm giving it, and it would be interesting to talk to somebody who has not read the book or not seen the miniseries, because I'm like, am I bringing some of this history to it because I just know it? Am I making it even deeper than it is because I just happen to know what's supposed to be happening? But you
That's
know
a
what
good
else?
point.
Now that I'm thinking about it, the fact that he has kind of all these bumbling idiots surrounding him. Well, I'll just leave it at that. I'm like,
Life
well,
for you.
maybe, yeah. Like, how could this happen? Why would he pick the idiots? Like, oh, well, I'm sure Rudy, I'm sure Rudy Giuliani is in Vegas somewhere as
Oh, he was
Flag's
there. Yeah,
attorney. Yeah,
his head was dripping with
yeah.
with dye.
He was the trash can man.
He was there. My life for you.
Yeah, he would totally do that.
My life.
Uh,
But I agree. I think that'll be interesting to talk to somebody that hasn't seen the original or read the book, what they think about this. Because
I
a lot of
did,
this, I wonder how much we know because we've read it and seen the 94.
and we kind of say, oh, this is what's happening, and so people are like, who is this trash can guy? Why are they calling him trash can? Uh,
Yeah,
I,
why is he?
yeah, yeah, I'm sure there's questions about that, but I had some flashbacks to Carrie as well, though, as people were trying to get out, they're pressed against the doors, reminding me of Carrie at the prom, and Julie kind of pushing some lady out of the way, and then she gets zapped in half. Just totally remind me of Carrie at the prom, and
Yeah,
that
those arts like that maybe even be like a little Easter egg they put in there because the being trapped behind the doors and
mhm,
everything trying to get out. Where
that's
would
what
you
it's.
go to? I mean, that's a nuclear bomb. You're done. You have to hope it doesn't go off for like a half an hour for you to get out
Yeah,
of town.
well, I thought they probably didn't know because at that time they were just escaping the
The
hand of God.
wrath.
And then
Yeah, that's true.
they probably some probably just went to the next bar over. I don't know, and didn't realize.
Yeah, we're just gonna go. We're gonna go over to Excalibur. There's a castle.
And
They
then I
did.
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and then I did have a moment. I was like, is Larry and Ray, are they gonna be saved somehow in the pool? Like I was like, is God gonna put a bubble around them?
I was wondering
I
about
don't.
that
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
because they was very, 1 minute like it's you ready, it's done, and then it ended very
Yeah,
quickly. I thought something else was going to happen
yeah.
to Ray and Larry.
I wanted like thought bubbles. Like it sure is bright up there. Like what?
Sure, what's happening? I honestly thought for a second that's what was going to happen. Like they'd see the brightness, even though that wouldn't happen, everything would be gone. But I'm glad that they didn't do that route. But
Yeah,
the blast was a good special effects. The '94 one didn't have that. They had a flash and then another flash. You know,
yeah. They
limited in '94.
kind of ran out of money. And then Flag
Yeah,
he gets zapped several times, and you kind of see his real self, and then he kind of disappears. So I don't know if that's a episode 9. He's not really dead. I don't know.
ooh, because in the novel, remember there's a prologue that shows he's alive on a beach and people are worshiping him at the very end.
Hmm,
I wonder if they're gonna do that.
maybe, but
Like uncivilized people on some remote island in the
yeah.
novel find out. Like he washes up on the beach and they kind of like worship him thinking he's a god. Who knows?
So yeah. So because we have a whole other so we see Stu, uh, the blast that affected him. Obviously, I was like, oh, is he gonna die too? Like, is this gonna be like
He was
he's
a little close.
yeah, obviously pretty close. And then of course Tom Cullen is it seems pretty close either because they're in that orange haze of a smoke, and he finds uh,
Yeah, that's radiation. What's gonna
yeah,
happen?
Kojak. Yeah, I don't. Yeah,
MOON, that
yeah.
spells cancer.
So, and I think that
Smoke.
was no. I guess no. We do cut to Boulder with Franny and Joe, and a little on the nose with the they see the lights, and it's in the three jagged that they have three jagged lights. That's the same three jagged symbol of the stone. I don't know if you noticed that.
I did not. No, I'm gonna have to watch that.
So yeah, at the end, because they kind of they look up and apparently they can see the nuclear. Maybe you
Right.
can. I don't know how that. I don't know the reality of how far you can see these nuclear explosions, but
Yeah, Boulder to Vegas, I would have to look on a map. I don't
yeah,
know. It sounds a little far. I didn't realize you could see that though.
yeah.
Or
So
I didn't put that together.
I'm assuming it was kind of the three pink jagged edges uh,
Ooh,
that they kind of saw, um,
two on the nose.
and now the baby's coming.
Baby's coming, and Fran is like, "Oh shit, she's in labor. What are we gonna do?" What do
Uh,
you think episode 10 or episode 9 is gonna be like?
I don't know. This could be the most interesting because I'm like, one, it better be something for if you're gonna have us another 45 minutes an hour, it better be uh,
Yeah,
something worth our while. And I'm curious. I just can't imagine
Dakota.
what it's gonna be.
I'm very curious myself because everything is buttoned up for the most part, storyline plot wise in this episode. So to have a whole nother episode, I'm wondering what are you gonna do?
Everyone we care about is gone, so I'm like,
Eh, yeah, what's gonna happen? My prediction it's gonna be a lot of Tom Cullen taking care of Stu in the desert,
yeah.
making their way back to Boulder, the labor, and then they get together and maybe, as long as there's some kind of twist at the end, I'll be whatever. We'll see.
I think they're gonna start like they started uh, at the beginning of episode 7, where you'll see Tom Cullen finding Stu, and then they'll cut to them just edging over the cliff. Like, wait a second, how did they do that? Like,
Yeah, how did that happen? Whoa, Stu.
um,
It's gonna be interesting to see where they take it from here. Or
yeah,
boring. I'm just happy you and I stuck through this so far for so long.
we have to, and like we talked about, because you're like, I think we're the only ones talking about this
I'm
stuff.
not seeing any other ones. I
Um,
Google actually YouTube that, and people have done an episode review, but that's
yeah,
it. Nobody's sticking with this week after week. They're mostly episode 1 reactions and episode 2, and that's it.
and then they walk out.
Yeah, I think we're the only ones that are doing this weekly.
We have to see how it ends, but it's sad because there's some this should be have been made for a true miniseries, and especially the way in this new millennium, the way miniseries really work, or these kind of short seasons of I think of Mr. Mercedes and Castle Rock and some other Stephen King. They knew what to do with this material and flesh it out. And I didn't count the time
Good
because
point.
technically uh, uh, the original miniseries was how many?
4 episodes, an hour each.
It
2
was
hours
two
each.
2 hours each, so it ended up being a little over 6 hours. So that's quite a bit of time. This one is not that much more. If you count that each one of these was about an hour, so far it's only been a couple hours more total, if that. And they really haven't.
Done much.
They really did a lot more in the original miniseries than we've been given so far, I think.
Yeah, that's what I'm glad you mentioned the time too, because it feels like the original miniseries had much more time, because they covered so many more things in the book and explored the characters more. I mean, the plague was the first it was the first episode. It was the first 2 hours of the whole thing. This they kind of glossed over it in flashbacks, and you know what it is? I think the flashbacks early on really hurt
Just messed
this
it
new
up.
one. Yeah.
Well, you think about Nick Andros, you think about the Rob Lowe version. Um, you got to know him, you got to see him doing different things, and he was on his own journey. This Nick
Yeah.
Andros, I think he was in 3, 4 scenes and just nothing,
Gone.
And he was when Nick Andros dies in the bombing, that is supposed to mean something, and this one is kind of they
Yes.
never mentioned him again.
That's so true. Yeah, Nick Andros was the heart. If he was the soul of the original one, Stu Redman was the heart,
Yeah, and
and they glossed over it, and his death was kind of like, whatever.
I
It should have meant more.
Yeah, I remember reading Stephen King talking about he gets about halfway through, and he realizes I think he said he realizes one there was too many characters, and two he was kind of he didn't necessarily say you have to kill your children, but he's like you got to do something that takes the rug out of under you have to he's made it as difficult as possible. He's like what can I do next? And one of those was killing Nick Andros. That even as he was writing it, he knew this was a kind of beloved character.
Oh, and that's why he did the bombing. That's
Yeah,
why that was thrown in there halfway through.
get some multiple people out of the picture to thin the herd.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
That's interesting because I wonder how Harold would have been if he didn't go that route. Because
Yeah.
Harold was just always weird, but then he turned evil halfway through.
Yeah, and he was supposed they do it a little bit they do it awkwardly in the original miniseries because I can't remember the kid's name that played him. It was Parker
Corin
Lewis, Grant
Nemec.
Lewis. Yeah. Because he starts off with some fake zits and stuff and
Yeah.
greased back hair, and then in the book he's supposed to kind of become into his own and becomes kind of more handsome. And they started to do that a little bit.
Yeah.
But it was supposed to be kind of he was supposed to kind of metamorphosize into kind of something cooler.
Something better. Yeah, I agree. It was kind of weird in the 94 one with the footing of that,
Yeah.
where he's just kind of like.
It was the equivalent of it was the guy version of equivalent of putting glasses and paint on her clothes for a girl, and you take them off and she's beautiful. We didn't realize she
Every
was
90s, like, teenage high
yes.
school comedy. It's like, oh, wow, I didn't realize that. Just that glasses and the.
If you stop wearing those coveralls with paint on them, guys would notice you more.
What movie is that from?
It's like every movie. I just like
She's All That.
And I do know they make fun of it in I think was it Not Another Teen Movie.
Yeah.
They do that exactly, and it works
Yep.
so well because that's exactly what happens.
Yeah,
But yeah, I
just
think
take
it
the
is
glasses off.
one of those where like oh, just let your hair down. I'm like, but I always wear a ponytail. Yeah.
Just to wrap up the stand to your point about Nick Andros, because he was such an integral character in the book, and they just glossed over him. I felt like on the other hand, Harold Lauder got more attention than he deserved in the miniseries, in the miniseries, because he's an important part of the book, but they focus like almost too much on him here and his character development, and they make it kind of all about him.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't work because the payoff isn't as good. He dies, and then he's out of it, and things were going the way they were going anyway.
Yeah, and nobody really cares, or we didn't care. I don't know if people kind of care about that character.
Well,
but
nobody else is watching it, so.
so nobody really truly cares.
No, really,
except for
I
us.
think it's just us. I think at CBS they're like, we got Robert and Matt coming in.